Hello and welcome to a special episode of Conservation Conversations with BirdLife South Africa. I'm your host, Melissa Whitecross, zooming to you all the way from a wintry Johannesburg. But given that the solstice has just come and gone, we are looking forward to slowly thawing things up on the high veld, and we look forward to the return of summer in our southern hemisphere. Tonight, our webinar is something a little different. As with most of our events, we have had to take BirdLife South Africa's annual OWL Awards into the virtual space. But that also means that a far wider audience will get to enjoy celebrating with us tonight. But before we begin the awards ceremony, please remember that you, our audience, can communicate with us using the Zoom chat room. We won't be taking any questions tonight, but feel free to use the comment feed to congratulate our awardees throughout the webinar. And if you're watching us on Facebook Live, you can use the comment feed for your comments. If you would like to get in touch via our social media channels, please use the hashtag Conservation Conversations. All of our previous episodes are available on BirdLife South Africa's YouTube channel, as well as our podcast. And we'd like to continue to encourage all of you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are so close to hitting that 1,000 subscriber threshold. So tell your friends and family to head over to YouTube and click subscribe on BirdLife South Africa's YouTube channel and support us. BirdLife South Africa is proud to produce this weekly webinar series, but it does not run without its costs. If you are enjoying conservation conversations and have found the content interesting and entertaining, why not consider dropping us a small donation towards our ongoing efforts to bring you new and exciting content that is free for all to learn and enjoy. Simply scan the Quicket QR code on screen or visit our Conservation Conversations website to find the link to our donations tab. And a huge thank you to everyone who has continued to support these webinars so far. Now we're rapidly preparing for our virtual African Bird Fair, which is returning to your screens this year and is set to take place on 30 and 31 July 2021. Registrations for the event are open. You can book your spot for this incredible lineup of speakers and workshops, which includes the likes of Chris Packham, the UK-based conservation television presenter, as well as David Lindo, the urban birder. Visit our website to find out more. And it now gives me great pleasure to hand over to BirdLife South Africa's CEO, Mark Anderson, and he will be joined by Chairman of the Board, Philip Calinikos, a little bit later to take us through tonight's OWL Awards. Reading the citations this evening is well-known radio presenter and marketing expert Andy Rice. A massive congratulations to all of our winners, and I hope that you will all enjoy hearing about the incredible achievements this evening. Thank you so much, Mark, and over to you.
Thank you, Melissa. Thanks very much. And good evening, everybody. It's really nice to have so many people attending our OWL Awards event. And in fact, this is the most well-attended OWL Awards event we've ever had. I see there's almost 400 people in attendance. So that is really fantastic. We really appreciate your time. Melissa did welcome and thank a number of people. I need to just personally thank Pamela Isdell and her husband Neville for their support, and also for your regular attendance of these events, these webinars. Pamela, thanks very much for your time. I see too that we have the heads of a number of conservation organizations also in attendance. So thank you, Stephen van der Spey, Lucy Kemp, and others. And I also see, in looking at the list of attendees, that we have a number of Bird Club chairs. So thank you to you for also spending this evening with us. Okay, so next slide, please, Melissa. A little bit about the OWL Awards. We've been presenting the OWL Awards for over a decade, I think close to 15 years. And this is one way in which we can acknowledge the incredibly important and valuable contributions that people and organizations are making towards the conservation of birds and their habitats in South Africa. I think you'll all know that there's important work to do. And we've been seeing that in the chat room where people have been saying ground hornbills and blue swallows and white-winged flufftails are a priority, but there's many bird species that need our attention. And BirdLife South Africa certainly tries its best, but we cannot do it on our own. And hence the important collaborations that we have with other organizations that are contributing towards the conservation of our country's birds and their habitats. We really appreciate and recognize the amazing work that so many people and organizations are doing in our country. So besides the OWL Awards, we also do have several other awards that we present. The Gill Memorial Medal, and I think some of you will know that David Allen received that at our recent annual general meeting. That is a very prestigious award for services to ornithology in Southern Africa. And I see David is also at this event, so thank you, David, for attending. So that's a really important award. Another award that we present annually, or almost every year, is the Austin Roberts Memorial Medal, and that's for contributions to conservation in South Africa. In terms of the Owl Awards, we present 12 Owl Awards every year, 9 Owl Awards, because there are 9 owl species in South Africa, 1 Owlet Award, and 2 Eagle Owl Awards. The Owlet Award is presented to a person who's 18 years or younger. And what's been so encouraging over the last few years is that we're not really battling to find young people who are deserving of the Owlet Award. More and more young people are doing important conservation work. So we thank them for that. We present 2 Eagle Owl Awards, and these are for very significant contributions to bird conservation over a long period. So what BirdLife South Africa does every year is we invite nominations for the Owl Awards, and it's our staff, our board members, our bird clubs, and our members who nominate people, and there are always more nominations than there are potential recipients. So it's a tough decision to actually make annually, and we have a panel which comprises of myself, our chairman, Philip Calinikos, Fanny Duplessis, the head of finance operations, Hanneline Smith-Robinson, the head of conservation, and then the 3 chairpersons of the 3 bird club forums. They all get together and they decide on the most deserving recipients. And of course, every year we'd like to give more awards, but we are limited to 12 awards a year. Each recipient receives a framed certificate and a bronze statuette. And the bronze statuette of a barn owl, and you can see an image there, is mounted on crystal glass. They're quite valuable, and we do appreciate the donation by Charles Gregg Jewelers of these beautiful statuettes. The names of the recipients are published in African BirdLife magazine, so the next issue of our magazine will have summaries of the citations and a few photos of our recipients. We may actually use the group photo that we took earlier this evening. We also place the names of the awards, the recipients' names, on our website, and those are left there for a long time. So you can go back a long time ago and see the recipients of previous Owl Awards. Next slide, please, Melissa. Okay, because of COVID-19, we could not present Owl Awards last year. So we decided to rather recognize the recipients of Owl Awards during the previous 11 years. And one day a week over an 11-day period, we had a scroll, as you can see in the screen, which we posted on social media and was emailed to the bird clubs and posted on our website. And those acknowledged the previous recipients. I mean, COVID hasn't gone away, and we decided that this year we will have a virtual event. So a little bit different to previous years. We've had these at various venues in Johannesburg over time. The last few Owl Award events have been at Isdell House, our head office in Johannesburg. Next slide, please. Okay, before we move on to the citations, I'd just like to thank a number of people and organizations for their support. Firstly, the selection panel. It's quite an effort to go through all of those citations and make go through all of the nominations and make a decision on the suitable recipients. Thank you very much to the panel. And then Charles Gregg Jewelers, in particular Christopher Gregg and Belinda Phillips, who've provided the Owl Award statuettes. And it's an incredible sponsorship. These are very valuable bronze statuettes, and we do appreciate Christopher's support and the assistance we received from his PA, Belinda. And Andy Rice, who's a well-known radio presenter, as Melissa mentioned, he's going to read the citations this evening. Isabel Himan and Melissa Whitecross, 2 of our staff, have provided a lot of assistance this year. So thanks very much for your all your support. As I said, there's 9 Owl Awards, and we're going to now hear the citations for the recipients. If we can go to the first slide, Melissa. And this is the cue for the recipient of the first Owl Award to switch his video on. Peter Ardern is going to receive the award on behalf of the Dalstrom Trout Farm. And as soon as his video is on, we will start playing the citation. Okay, Peter Ardern, can you hear me? If you could just switch your video on, please.
Okay.
The Dalstrom Trout Farm. The Dalstrom Trout Farm has been instrumental in furthering research into and the conservation of the white-winged flufftail.
Oh dear.
Dalstrom Trout Farm purchased the property that encompasses most of the Middelpunt wetland, where white-winged flufftails regularly occur in summer. In fact, it was the only site in the Southern Hemisphere with a confirmed breeding record for this critically endangered species. A major motivation for the purchase was to secure the flufftail's habitat and protect it from external threats. The wetland has been leased to Middelpunt Wetland Trust since 1994, and the surrounding veld has been used only for cattle grazing, thus ensuring that the overall integrity of the wetland is maintained. For the past 10 years, the trout farm has been supporting BirdLife South Africa's research, fundraising, and awareness fostering activities with regard to white-winged flufftails at Middelpunt Wetland. In 2017, Dalstrom Trout Farm joined the Greater Larkenvlei Protected Environment in a bid to improve the protection status of its property from threats such as mining. Together with a neighboring landowner, it recently expressed the intention to declare Middelpunt Wetland a private nature reserve. The improved conservation status and a management plan for the reserve will ensure that Middelpunt Wetland will provide suitable breeding habitat for white-winged flufftails for many years to come. The Dalstrom Trout Farm has led communications with conservation bodies that are active in the area and has consistently provided assistance when required. The trout farm is also represented on the Greater Larkenvlei Landowners Association Committee. This committee meets regularly and has made an essential contribution to the current expansion of the Greater Larkenvlei Protected Environment by negotiating with identified landowners and arranging site assessments.
Peter, very well done. And thank you for all the Dalstrom Trout Farm does for BirdLife South Africa and for the white-winged flufftail. We really appreciate it. And I know our staff, Annelien Smith-Robinson and Kyle and others really enjoy working with you and your team. So thanks very much for all you do for conservation. Okay, so Nikki, if you could switch your video on, please.
Nicolette Forbes. Since taking over as chairperson of BirdLife eThekwini KZN in early 2019, Nicolette has brought an unparalleled level of energy and innovation to the club. That she has accomplished so much under the trying circumstances brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic speaks even more to the level of her achievement. Much of Nicolette's overall success can be attributed to her ability to draw in and inspire other club and committee members. Nonetheless, her individual successes are numerous and include organizing activities for the club's 70th anniversary in 2019, revamping its website and Facebook page, establishing highly useful WhatsApp and email communication channels, revitalizing the outings portfolio, and taking charge of the calendar and ensuring sponsorship, top quality production, and healthy sales to make a handsome profit for the club. She has steered funds to some of BirdLife South Africa's most important projects by taking out Conservation League membership for the club and providing financial support for southern banded snake eagle and mouse-free Marion initiatives. She organized and co-presented a Being a Better Birder course many times, and when COVID-19 lockdowns put a stop to face-to-face activities, she took them online to great effect. A strategic planning meeting and AGMs at Mount Edgecombe and then online, she took in her stride. She organized a photographic competition for members, and she initiated and led a new project to maximize SABAP2 coverage in the eThekwini area. But perhaps Nicolette's greatest achievement has been her meticulously planned effort to revive the club's membership. Almost single-handedly, she identified past members who had allowed their membership to lapse and urged them to rejoin. As a result, The number of club members jumped from 189 to 489 during 2019 to 2020, a landmark success.
Well done, Nikki, very deserving. Sure, impressive stuff you're doing down in KZN. Hey, Peter Ginn, if you could just switch your video on, please, Peter. There we go. Oh, thanks, Peter.
Peter Ginn. Over 6 decades, Peter has gained enormous traction in his efforts to promote birding and make it more accessible to the general public, both as a hobby and from a scientific perspective. His own interest in birds developed while he was engaged on a geological survey in Botswana in the early 1960s, and was entrusted with the task of providing fresh meat daily for the team. This he did very efficiently, proving to be a commendable marksman who never wasted a round and kept his colleagues well fed. It didn't need much of a mind shift to turn his sharp eye and keen observational abilities to birds, and when he was appointed science and geography teacher at Peterhouse High School near Marondera in present-day Zimbabwe, his latent passion for birds grew deeper. Peter flourished in the liberty granted by the school and led many birding outings with the lively boys in his care. At the same time, he became a leading figure in the techniques of bird photography and the use and development of bird hides. Many weekends he would spend inside an elaborately constructed contraption overlooking the nest of a particular bird species to record its breeding habits and other data. During this period, he produced 10 widely acclaimed birding guides with photographs that are still regarded as significant. Peter was also involved in producing the Complete Book of South African Birds, a mammoth landmark publication that he co-authored with Jeff McIlleron and Peter Milstein. Published in 1989, this was one of the last photographic bird books of the pre-digital era. Another major and more recent photographic bird book bearing Peter's name is The Ultimate Companion for Birding in South Africa, which he and Jeff McIlleron produced. Although latterly dogged by a number of health challenges, Peter has not been deterred from continuing to share his knowledge at birding outings and other meetings. One of his most recent efforts was the creation of accessible and affordable workshops for young people in the George area, enabling them to draw on his vast experience. The results can be seen in the half dozen or so enthusiastic and knowledgeable youngsters who regularly attend Lakes Bird Club outings and are now themselves capable of leading them. One of Peter's favorite sayings is, "There's no such thing as a silly question, only an unasked question." This summarizes his tremendous generosity of spirit and indomitable urge to share his knowledge and interest.
Very well done, Peter. And there's a comment in the chat room saying that you're a legend, and I could not agree more. And for those who don't have a copy of Peter's latest book, Peter and Jeff McIlleron's book, The Ultimate Companion, I'd recommend that you get the 2 volumes. Okay, we can now move on to Chris Lutz.
Dr. Chris Lutz. Chris is the founder and director of Birding Eco Tours, an international tour operator specializing in birding and wildlife travel. He is a proud South African, and although work pulls him to different corners of the globe, he remains passionate about this country's birds and their conservation. Chris has steadfastly maintained his support for bird conservation throughout the lifetime of his business, and has donated a significant portion of its profits to organizations such as BirdLife South Africa to support work on the conservation of birds and their habitats. He is a generous benefactor to the community bird guides and recently acquired a kayak for one of the Zululand guides who wants to grow his business. He also raised significant funding for the relief of guides affected by the COVID-19 pandemic in South Africa and across Birding Ecotour's entire geographic footprint. Chris is liberal with his time and has served for many years as the chair of the BirdLife South Africa List Committee, which produces the organization's annual checklist. With his colleagues on the committee, he revises the checklist every year, taking into account taxonomic changes and new discoveries. He recently spearheaded the effort to change the names of 2 birds on the list due to their offensive nature. Chris is a thoughtful, kind, and generous person, and his support of BirdLife South Africa's work to conserve this country's birds is exemplary.
Thank you, Chris. Never forget meeting you for the first time about 12 years ago when I started working at BirdLife South Africa, and we haven't looked back. Thank you very much for all you do for our organization and for birds in general. Okay, Sita Biso is next.
Sita Biso Majoka, a field ranger with eThekwini Municipality's Natural Resources Division since 2006. Sita Biso has been involved in the environment and environmental training for most of his professional career. This has been the focus of his work, but spend a few minutes with him and you realize that it's not just a job. His passion for the natural world is obvious and infectious. A glance at Sita Biso's training and work experience before becoming a field ranger provides insight into a person whose interests and experience are very diverse. It was his love for all things botanical that led to study at the Natal Herbarium and initially set him on a career path into the environmental sphere. Anyone who has walked with him in the veld will vouch for his extensive and detailed knowledge of KwaZulu-Natal's plants and habitats. This fascination for plants is still strong, complementing and serving as a backdrop for his birding. His interest in birds also developed at a young age during his 2-hour walk to school in rural KwaZulu-Natal, and it has developed into a passion that is obvious on any birding outing he leads. He has become a valued member of BirdLife eThekwini KZN, whose extremely interesting and deeply philosophical conversations leave fellow members with a new perspective or understanding. Sita Biso is happiest when discovering something new about the natural environment and is always questioning. His eagerness to learn from anyone who knows something about a subject is an integral part of his nature. Yet he is equally happy to share his knowledge and is a fantastic communicator to both children and adults. The destruction of wild spaces troubles him deeply, and he dedicates much of his energy to promoting the improvement of habitats. His exploration of many of KZN's rural areas and his profiling of the birds in these areas has opened hearts and minds to the possibilities that exist in the province for both birding and conservation. Moreover, his focus on both birds and plants makes him a very powerful ambassador for the conservation of birds and their habitats.
Very well done, Sita Biso. And I must tell you, I really enjoy looking at your photographs on Facebook. I'll always pause and look at them very carefully because you are an excellent bird photographer. Unfortunately, the late Saul Sitole's great-grandson, Themba Zita, is unable to attend the event. So we will go ahead without his video, without seeing him, but we will make sure that the award is delivered to Themba in Pretoria in due course.
Saul Sitole. Saul dedicated 62 years of his life to the study of birds and fossils at the Transvaal, now Ditsong, Natural History Museum. And although he lived during the apartheid era and worked in a sphere where recognition was reserved for educated white scientists, he worked diligently and effectively enough to make his own indelible mark on the history of ornithology in South Africa. A very skilled craftsman, Saul was in charge of preparing study specimens at the museum. His very fine and accurate work was underscored by an expert understanding of the intricate anatomy of birds and how their unseen organs, muscles and skeleton, as well as feathers and other parts, interact. He was also a keen observer of birds, studying their behavior while out on field expeditions in order to make his museum specimens more lifelike. Saul was a valuable member of a number of important collecting expeditions in Southern Africa, accompanying and assisting acclaimed scientists such as Austin Roberts, Herbert Lang, and Robert Broom. At times, he was called upon to lead the team of assistants who carried out much of the work on these trips. Such was the regard that the preeminent scientists of the day had for his work. When necessary, he also took on the role of translator and cultural guide, thus making a success of expeditions that would otherwise have ended in failure. This, however, was the highest position he could aspire to, given the limits placed on people of colour at the time. Nevertheless, Saul's 6-decade contribution to the fundamental study of ornithology was immense both at home and abroad, and his specimens were exported to such well-regarded collections as that of the Natural History Museum in London and the American Museum of Natural History in New York. Our understanding of birds in South Africa would be so much poorer were it not for Saul's curiosity and dedication.
And I think that people like David Allen will appreciate the massive contribution that Saul has made over a period of 62 years, an immense contribution. For those who attended our annual general meeting recently, we've renamed our library at Isdell House, our head office in Johannesburg, the Saul Sithole Memorial Library, to commemorate those 62 years of ornithological dedication. Gavin Peterson is next.
Gavin Peterson. Gavin is an assistant marine ranger for the Southern African Foundation for the Conservation of Coastal Birds, or SANCCOB, and has been seconded to the African penguin colony at Stony Point under the auspices of Cape Nature since 2019. Gavin's passion for seabirds, especially African penguins, is exceptional, and he is committed to the conservation of this endangered species. Under the guidance of various mentors, including Quan McGeorge and Marcello October, he has acquired important field knowledge and a deep understanding of African penguins and their conservation at the Stony Point colony. He has become familiar with most of the breeding pairs and has an uncanny ability to identify penguins in need of assistance, whether they are chicks that have been abandoned or birds that have been injured, oiled, or are generally showing signs of distress. As an active member of the Cape Nature Seabird Monitoring Programme, Gavin helps to conduct breeding and population surveys, but he also spends a lot of time improving the penguin's habitat, implementing measures to counteract the impact of heavy rain and flooding, and looking out for signs of predation. As a strong on-the-ground advocate for the conservation of African penguins, who regularly helps researchers to learn more about their ecology, Gavin is an inspiring example of how dedicated field rangers can promote the conservation of endangered seabirds.
Very well done, Gavin. And I know that a number of people who support you have joined us tonight. Alistair McInnes, head of our Seabird Conservation Program, is with you. I see Stephen van der Spey has also joined. And Pamela Isdell, one of our honorary patrons, who's a supporter of our African penguin work, will be very pleased to hear that you've received this award. Okay, we're now going to go to Clive Vivier. Clive didn't send me a picture of himself. He said I must rather use a picture of a vulture or some vultures. And so Clive, if you could switch your video on. Thank you.
Clive Vivier. In 2019, BirdLife South Africa launched the Vulture Safe Zone project, which aims to persuade owners of large tracts of land to manage their properties in ways that are safe for vultures. The Zululand Important Bird and Biodiversity Area encompasses some of the most important breeding and foraging habitat for the critically endangered white-backed vulture in KwaZulu-Natal. Establishing it as one of the first vulture-safe zones in South Africa was a logical step, but the project faced numerous challenges. A search for a resident champion who would promote the scheme to local landowners turned up Clive Fafia, who stepped up to the plate and managed to achieve something remarkable. With his trademark enthusiasm, Clive drove the initiative from start to finish, convincing 14 landowners to work together to save Zululand's vulture populations from extinction. The declaration of the Zululand Vulture Safe Zone in September 2020 secured more than 200,000 hectares for vulture conservation and set the benchmark for all other vulture safe zones in South Africa. Without Clive's drive and energy, this could never have been accomplished.
Thank you, Clive, for all you do for vultures. And I know that Linda van der Heever, who works very closely with you, is also attending tonight's event. And Pamela Neville-Isdell will also be pleased to hear about your award. Neville-Isdell sponsors our vulture conservation work. Okay, now to move on to Christelle Wilson. Christelle is our last OWL Award recipient, and then we will get to the other awards.
Christelle Wilson. Christelle has been birding for more than 45 years and is a long-standing member of BirdLife South Africa, having joined BirdLife eThekwini KZN, formerly BirdLife Port Natal, in 2008. On moving to Howick in 2016, she also joined the KZN Midlands branch. Christelle is perhaps most widely known as the editor of KZN Birds, the official magazine of the 7 KwaZulu-Natal bird clubs affiliated to BirdLife South Africa, a position she took up in 2009. Since then, she has dedicated much time and effort to finding authors and photographers who would provide interesting and informative articles and good quality images, and then compiling these into the final publication. Club members eagerly look forward to each issue of the magazine, whose content is wide-ranging and covers conservation, various projects, bird observations, rarity reports, and club news and activities, as well as notices and advertisements. Christelle was responsible for arranging the printing and distribution of the hard copy of the magazine. When the decision was made to go digital, she was concerned about the transition to the very different electronic format. But she rose to the occasion and the process went off smoothly. She is still in contact with the previous editor of KZN Birds, Dr. David Allen, and when bird carcasses become available, she hands them over to him for the Durban Natural Science Museum. Before BirdLife Port Natal changed its name, Christelle initiated the club's annual calendar and until recently continued to source photographs and advertising for it. She still assists with selling the calendars, which provide welcome income for BirdLife eThekwini. A committed atlaser, Christelle was actively involved in the SABAP 1, and she has been contributing to SABAP 2 since October 2007. The 845 full protocol cards she has submitted for 168 pentads spread across South Africa represent at least 1,690 hours of bird monitoring. She has also contributed 277 ad hoc cards for 124 pentads. She is a keen photographer too, and has submitted 868 photographic records of 278 species across 18 quarter-degree grid cells to the Virtual Museum's BirdPix repository. She has also been acknowledged for her contribution to the latest edition of Robert's Bird Guide.
Christelle, very well done. And I don't know how many people appreciate all the effort that goes into producing a newsletter. I certainly enjoy receiving and reading KZN Birds. So well done to you, Christelle. Okay, we're going to move on to the next award, which is the Owlet Award. And as I said earlier, this is awarded annually to somebody who's 18 years and younger. And we actually have a joint award this year. So it's going to 2 people. So if we could have the next slide, Please, Melissa.
Was that mute?
Mark, Justin, just put your video on as well, please.
The Owlet Award, Mark Haskett and Justin Ponder. In 2018, the Lakes Bird Club welcomed its first youth members, Mark Haskett from George and Justin Ponder from Sedgefield. Growing up together, the boys developed a great love for the natural world, and in 2017, they discovered birds. Soon afterwards, they met up with Peter Ginn and Christian Verleuren, who mentored them and encouraged them to join the Bird Club, where they could meet like-minded people. Justin and Mark soon became valued members of the Lakes Bird Club, helping to lead outings and contributing write-ups to the Malachite newsletter. They have assisted with quack counts on Knysna Lagoon and Carr counts in the Uniondale area of the Little Karoo. When Tim Carr started organising pelagic trips from Knysna in December, they were there to help with chumming. On Birding Big Day, they joined Tim on the Ludwig Bustards team, which attained second place in the Western Cape with 212 species. During the recent hard lockdown, the club organised a challenge for members to record birds from their own properties, and Mark and Justin took top places. They performed similarly well in the 2020 Garden Route and Klein Karoo 150 kilometre challenge. On the club's WhatsApp group, they are usually the first to identify unknown birds correctly. In mid-December last year, while they were identifying waders at Fulfley, an ephemeral wetland south of Mossel Bay, two birds in particular stood out. The boys took photos and sent them to Trevor Hardiker for confirmation that they had discovered a pair of buff-breasted sandpipers. Trevor concurred with this mega find, only the 18th record of the species in southern Africa, and the first time that two birds together had been recorded here. More than 100 birders came to twitch the sandpipers, a dream come true for the youngsters. Mark also has a talent for writing poetry and has produced some birding shirts with a charming Cape Battis logo drawn by him. Justin takes excellent photos and for Christmas 2020 produced 2 calendars, of which he sold nearly 200 copies. He used the proceeds to purchase his own Vortex binoculars. These are 2 youngsters whose enthusiastic interest in the natural world, especially birds, is matched only by their determination to pursue that interest.
Congratulations, Mark and Justin. Very well done. It's so nice to see so many young people now developing an interest in birding and also contributing to the study and also the conservation. So well done, guys. We present every year 2 Eagle Owl Awards, and 2 very deserving people are going to be receiving these awards. And as I said at the beginning, these are 2 people and organizations who've contributed significantly to the conservation of birds in South Africa, but over a long period.
The Eagle Owl Award. Jeff Lockwood. Jeff's interest in birds and their behaviour goes back to his early years, when he lived close to the Braamfontein Strait, Delta Park, and the Florence Bloom Bird Sanctuary in Johannesburg, an urban area with remarkably rich biodiversity. In 1976, as a young member of the Witwatersrand Bird Club, he met Norman Bloom at a monthly outing to the Florence Bloom Bird Sanctuary and became involved in the transformation of the Delta Sewage Works building into what is now the Delta Environmental Centre. Norman was chairman of the Witwatersrand Bird Club, and Jeff was invited to serve on the club's committee. This in turn led to a position on the council of the South African Ornithological Society, which he continued to hold when the society became BirdLife South Africa in 1996. He finally stepped down after 27 years of service to both the Wits Bird Club Committee and the BirdLife South Africa Council. Bird ringing has always been of particular interest to Jeff, and he has collected substantial records over the years. A personal highlight for him was the long association with the Cape Robin chat that he ringed after it became trapped in the Delta Centre building on the 25th of May 2000. It remained in the vicinity for more than 18 years, setting a record of known longevity for the species. Jeff and his wife Cynthia have spent their entire married life in the flat on the upper floor of the Delta Tower, a prime site in Johannesburg for watching birds, and he has amassed an enormous collection of records of bird sightings for this extensive green lung in the city. As resident manager and education officer at the Delta Environmental Centre, Jeff developed many skills relating to nature conservation and environmental training, with a strong focus on birds and their behaviour. His close involvement with owl pairs and their offspring at the centre formed the basis of many presentations to a wide variety of audiences. These helped to create awareness, especially among young people and local government decision makers, of the need to protect raptors in urban environments. A nest box relationship between spotted eagle owls and Egyptian geese is also well documented. Jeff's involvement in an extensive study of African grass owls in a residential development near Irene led to a stint as co-chair of the Endangered Wildlife Trust's African Grass Owl Working Group, where he made a significant contribution to the long-term conservation plans for this vulnerable species. Another long-term project involved the capture and relocation of oxpeckers. Initially, in 1986, yellow-billed oxpeckers were caught in eastern Caprivi and reintroduced into what is now the Shoshului Mfolozi Park in KwaZulu-Natal. 2 years later, red-billed oxpeckers were relocated from the Kruger National Park into areas where they had died out. Jeff continued to run these capture operations for 8 years. Always ready to share his knowledge, Jeff has been involved in the West Rand Honorary Rangers annual birding weekends in the Kruger Park since their inception, and is a popular guide at these important fundraising events. He also supports the Friends of Nailsflay and the Friends of Verloren nature reserves by presenting courses and guiding bird and wildflower walks. An active atlaser, Jeff contributed to SABAP 1, has submitted more than 1,400 full protocol cards for SABAP 2, and served on the steering committee for the latter, helping to develop protocols and oversee the rollout of this important initiative. He is a regular participant in BirdLife South Africa's annual Birding Big Day, guiding the Verloren falcons for the past 10 years. Bird clubs still form an important part of Jeff's birding career. He has served as honorary president of the Rand Barbets Bird Club since it was established 30 years ago, is an honorary life member of the Wits Bird Club and BirdLife Free State, and continues to present talks and courses at various clubs to promote the awareness, enjoyment, and conservation of our amazing bird life. He also regularly answers questions about birds from the public, media, and bird club members. His artistic talent found an outlet in the 1985 edition of Robert's Birds of Southern Africa, in which his paintings accompanied those of Ken Newman. Jeff also wrote and illustrated his popular Garden Birds of Southern Africa, published in 1981, and wrote Birding with Sappy and Jeff Lockwood in 2000. In the foreword to the latter, BirdLife South Africa's CEO at the time, Dr. Aldo Baruti, aptly described Jeff as South Africa's best-known birder and raconteur of birding tales.
Congratulations, Jeff. You should read the messages in the chat room. People are describing you as a legend and an inspiration, and I fully agree. Also mentions being made of the posts on your spotted eagle owl observations, which we all appreciate seeing and reading. And I see Meltrop even commented on the fact that you survived that worm slung bite and were able to attend tonight's event and receive the award. Okay, over to Lucy.
Mabula Ground Hornbill Project. The southern ground hornbill, a long-lived species that breeds cooperatively, is listed as endangered regionally and vulnerable globally. And as well as being ecologically important, it is culturally significant, being widely known as the thunderbird or the rainbird. This year, the non-profit Mabula Ground Hornbill Project celebrates 21 years of conserving this charismatic species. The organization is the BirdLife South Africa species guardian for the southern ground hornbill, which in 2020 was the BirdLife South Africa Bird of the Year. Since 1999, when the first group of reintroduced southern ground hornbills was released into the Mabula Private Game Reserve in Limpopo, the project has achieved a number of noteworthy successes. It has devised protocols for taking from the nest and rearing second hatched chicks that would naturally not survive, and then reintroducing them into the wild, especially in areas where the species no longer occurred. The artificially raised chicks are released along with adult hornbills that are used to living in the wild and will act as mentors. And they form carefully managed groups called bush schools. These groups breed successfully and rear their offspring, which in due course disperse naturally and form pairs. Prior to their release into the wild, the young chicks are reared at the Baobab, a specialized center designed and built by the Mabula Ground Hornbill Project, which also raised the funds needed for its construction. One of the major limiting factors to the ground hornbill's breeding success is the loss of suitable nesting sites. The Mabula Ground Hornbill Project was part of a team that recently developed an artificial structure that closely resembles the bird's natural nest. The same size and shape, entrance height, thickness of the walls, and microclimate. These so-called super nests are placed where suitable nest sites no longer exist. The project benefits from the strong and capable leadership of Dr. Lucy Kemp, who is also the African co-chair of the IUCN SSC Hornbill Specialist Group. Internationally respected for her work, she initiated a conservation plan for the critically endangered Sulu hornbill and was a participant in the planning workshop for the conservation of the critically endangered helmeted hornbill. In Africa, her specific role is to grow capacity within the continent for the conservation of hornbill species in general, as they are woefully understudied and are regarded by the IUCN as data deficient. This is of particular concern in view of a burgeoning bushmeat trade. Hornbills have been identified as the most traded bird species in West and East Africa. The Mabula Ground Hornbill Project is widely recognized for its stellar research and reintroduction and conservation initiatives, including comprehensive educational programs that raise awareness about the southern ground hornbill and helped to minimize threats to it.
Congratulations, Lucy. Well done to you and your organization for all you do. And of course, congratulations on the recent Whitley Award, which you received, one of the world's most prestigious conservation awards. Okay, I'm going to now hand over to our chairman, Philip Calinikos, who's going to say the final few words.
Thank you, Mark. On behalf of the Board of Directors, I would like to congratulate the recipients of our 2021 Eagle Owl, Owl and Owlet Awards this evening. Your awards are richly deserved. Now more than ever in the history of the human race, we are in dire need of people such as yourselves who have devoted and continue to devote so much time and energy towards the conservation of our indigenous birds, their habitats, and to the promotion of birding and bird watching to our members and the public at large. We truly appreciate your efforts and hope that the examples you have set will spur more of us to take up the fight for the conservation of our global biodiversity. Our planet sorely needs us to do so, not only to protect what we still have, but to improve matters for the sake of our children and future generations. Thank you to all of you that have joined us for the award ceremony tonight. Your support is highly appreciated. I will now hand over back to Mark. Keep warm, keep well, and stay safe, everyone.
Thanks very much, Philip, for your lovely words. And also thanks to you for all you do for BirdLife South Africa and for bird conservation. It is gratefully appreciated. So folks, we've come to the end of tonight's event. So I'd like to thank you for your attendance, and you'll read more about this event and the recipients of these awards in our magazine, the next issue of our magazine, African BirdLife, as well as on our website. So thanks very much, everybody, and good night.
Thanks, everybody. We will leave the chat room open for a few more minutes if anyone would like to provide their comments, and a massive congratulations to all of our award winners. Once again, thank you all for tuning in to our OWL Awards this evening. We'll be back next week, 7 o'clock, with a talk on southern banded snake eagles with Christian Brink. So be sure to join us, same time, same place. Keep your eyes on the skies and keep enjoying those birds. Good night, everyone.